The Guardian of the Worlds presents The Diary of Sot, Trapped Among the Ugards.
That is why, since that day, I have been planning my escape. I slowly opened the window and I slipped through it without hesitation, landing just behind the bushes that surround the Grand Sea. Once I reached the first trees of the forest, I began to run frantically. However, as soon as I closed my eyes, I heard rapid steps nearby, during which my legs trembled with fear. I noticed the creature suddenly lunging at me. Fortunately, at that critical moment, a precise strike hit the creature's neck, causing it to collapse lifelessly right on top of me. "Who are you?" As I approached the crowd, I noticed several of them stepping aside, creating a path. Through it, I saw the leader who had struck me earlier. Udag, the day 11th of the month of Athirmenes of the year 42nd after Universal War. My dearest diary, at this point, you're already aware of how my attempts to escape the Great Hall were abruptly thwarted by those strange beings who took me prisoner. At the time, I scarcely understood why they were treating me in such manner. Yet, there I was, on my knees, bound, and on the verge of discovering the reason for my capture.
"Esteemed brothers and sisters,"
began the elderly figure, reclining on his modest throne, his piercing orange eyes scanning the gathered crowd. I wish I could claim that I was struck with terror upon hearing his first words, but that was not the case. This creature, like the others, as I would soon discover, lacked vocal cords, so they all communicated telepathically. Even now, I remain astonished when I recall such an extraordinary event, the likes of which I had never before encountered.
"During our hunt, we stumbled upon this eel creature, and being attacked by our prey.
Continued he, gesturing towards me with his capture.
Frankly, I ain't got the foggiest what kind of creature it is, nor how it came to be here. After several days thinking it over, we have decided that you, our beloved folk, shall determine the fate of this being that has wandered into our lands." "That's to the monster!"
Came a cry, if such it can be called, from one of the creatures in the crowd. Monster! Given my appearance, how could these beings regard me as a monster? But glancing at these oddly shaped creatures, I realized that I was the one who appeared a stranger to them, which must be why they perceived me as such.
"Hey, let's finish him off!"
added another, quickly joined by the rest of the crowd, all clamoring for my death.
"Not so fast!
Interjected the elder before me, raising two of his arms.
There is something I need ye all to see afore ye make your decision. Ye,
Said he, fixing his enormous eyes on me.
what's your name and where do you come from?"
For a moment, I was stunned, as this was the first time the elder had addressed me directly. I briefly considered remaining silent, but I quickly realized that would be the worst possible course of action in this situation. It told me that if he was asking these questions, it meant that he and the others could understand what I was saying. So, gathering my courage, I decided to answer, hoping it might sway the crowd's opinion. "I am Sot." The crowd fell silent, and I heard the creatures emit sounds of surprise. Simultaneously, their pupils dilated, and their eyes, already large, seemed to grow even larger. "Prince of Baldes," continued I, aiming to impress them further.
"Baldes, you say?
Interjected the elder, scrutinizing me closely.
"Ain't never heard of such a place, but how'd ye end up here?"
For a moment, I considered telling my story, but the fear of being sent back to the Great Hall stopped me. I tried to come up with a plausible response instead. "I am uncertain," replied I, thinking it was the safest answer, as I could not find a reasonable explanation for my presence there either. Immediately after my words, the crowd resumed murmuring among themselves, though I could not understand what they were saying. Then, one of them, who had a long white beard hanging from his muzzle, approached me and, using his staff, revealed the amulet of light that had been hidden beneath my dirty clothes. The sight of the amulet brought a sudden hush over the crowd, as if it had rendered them speechless.
Sir, she's got one of the emblems,
said the bearded man, as I heard him speak to the elder, who still seemed stunned.
Could it be?
Murmured the elder, his eyes still fixed on the amulet.
Who are ye and what's bringing you here?
Asked he again, his gaze locking onto mine with piercing intensity. I have already answered you,
But you haven't explained how you got here.
insisted he, his anger beginning to surface. I was rescued from my homeland by Arus and his retinue. They brought me to this world to be trained as one of their guardians. The moment I mentioned the name of the guardians of the world, a wave of murmurs spread through the crowd. It seemed that merely invoking the master's name filled them with an uncontrollable fear.
So it's you.
Interjected another elder, trying to piece it together.
Take him back to its cell.
Commanded the elder of the community abruptly, striking the dusty ground with his scepter and cutting off his subordinate.
But sir,
Tried the bearded one to protest,
he could be... I know exactly what you're implying, Dak.
snapped the elder, fixing him with such a fierce glare that his disciple quickly stepped back, retreating to his place among the others. With that, two of the creatures approached me and escorted me back to the room where I had awakened not long before. Were they the same ones who had brought me here? It was impossible to tell, as I could not distinguish one face from another among these beings. When back in my quarters, drenched by the persistent drizzle, I was again bound and left kneeling, staring at the dusty floor, unable to move. I honestly do not know how long I remained in that miserable state, days, perhaps even weeks. During that time, while I struggled to survive, I imagined that the village leaders were debating what to do with me. Throughout this period, I was sustained by a strange blue liquid of unknown origin that had a bitter taste, though I had nothing else to drink, so it was either that or die of thirst, and roasted meat from some of the beasts that inhabited the vast wilderness, serving as prey for the creatures. Despite my dire situation, my time there was made somewhat more bearable, even pleasant, by the daily visits of a young member of the village. She was the one who gradually explained everything I wanted to know about these creatures, their culture, and, most importantly, my fate. I still remember her name, Elak. She was the one who made my miserable stay in that desolate place a little less harsh. I recall the hours we spent together and how much I learned from our conversations. Unfortunately, our friendship did not last long. If I had thought that being a prisoner of the ugards, what these creatures called themselves, was the worst thing that could have happened to me after my escape, fate was soon to show me how wrong I was.